Hello, everyone. Welcome to another appointment with Going Expat. Today, our guest is Cesare. Hi, Cesare.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Nice to meet you. And today with Cesare, we are gonna talk a little bit about UK. We are gonna get some bureaucratic help, so some info and suggestion to know better what to do in order to move to UK, since after Brexit things have changed, and also a little bit about how to get the citizenship in case you want to do that. So, Cesare, before deep dive in the topic of today, please tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so hi, my name is Cesare. I live in Manchester. I'm from Rome originally, so I born and raised in Rome, moved here in 2016, which is about 8 years ago at the time of recording. I'm a lecturer in mathematics, so I do research and teach maths at the University of Manchester. But I also have this non-profit company called i3 Italy, which is community interest company, non-profit in the UK, that helps Italian people in England or in the UK with topics. So there's a website, there's social media, some news, some interviews, which this may be one, and so on. And I'm also counselor in the Manchester Committees, which is this committee for Italians abroad, and I can give legal advice on EU settlement scheme as a volunteer with Settle. So it's a bit of this all-around picture where I try to help the Italian community here, which is not as small as it may sound. There's more than 500,000 Italians in the United Kingdom. So yeah, that's a fairly big number.
Sounds like a big number indeed, yeah.
Yeah, there's all sorts of issues. And of course, Italian institutions are completely overwhelmed by the number. So, I mean, it's a problem of the general consular network, but in the UK, it's particularly bad. It's getting better recently, but there's just by volume, really, consulates really do struggle picking up every single person.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I can imagine then, since Brexit, things have been changed. So the requests that they are having are like way more and also different. Yes. And there is all a different process to work on.
And they haven't even been changed once. They change about every 2 months. So that's even worse to some regard. Sometimes it's Italy changing stuff. Sometimes it's the UK. Sometimes it's, yeah. So it's quite messy, yeah.
Well, at least we know that Italy is not the only country that mess around with bureaucracy then.
No, even though the UK is still more advanced. Well,
okay.
They do change things a lot.
Well, nice to know that you have this non-profit organization and you help our fellow Italians in England or in the UK. I will leave in the description of the video the contacts, and at the description of the video, everyone will also find the link to the official websites to go deep on what we are saying today. Of course, what we are saying is not only based on Cesare's experience, but also on his knowledge of the bureaucracy and all the processes. But in a video of about 30 minutes, we cannot talk about every single situation. So those are general information, and all the details then will be found in the links of the official website. A little bit of a disclaimer to make things clear. And now,
no, that's fair enough. Yes.
Yeah. And now let's move to our topic. Cesare, what has changed since Brexit? So if I want to move to UK today, what do I have to do as a first step?
Yeah, so also my little bit of a disclaimer. First thing I want to say is that in the UK, it is illegal to give immigration advice unless you're authorized to do so. Okay. So asking on Facebook for someone to help you with your visa is not very well received, because if someone helps you there, they don't know what they're doing because they don't know it's illegal. So imagine what else they know. So there's tons of completely wrong advice, which has ruined quite many people. So just be very careful. And my advice is that you don't really need to figure it out yourself, as we're about to see. So before Brexit, you could just get your passport or ID card, jump on a plane, move here, and you are a resident from day one. That's because we are in the European Union. Now that's not true, and the main consequence of Brexit really has been stopping freedom of movement. Stopping freedom of movement means that now European citizens, just like every other citizen, need to get a visa to work and live in the UK. This is made a bit complex as a transition because European citizens can still enter the UK as visitors for periods of up to 6 months without a visa. So some people, you can still jump on a plane and land in the UK, but you don't have the right to work or to live here. And so I can stay up to 6 months, 180 days, and you cannot work or do several activities. So what you can do is very limited. But this is not well communicated in that the individual that just gets on the plane and shows their passport can land here without knowing any better. So there have been cases where people undertook illegal activities without generally knowing that they were illegal, just because they were ill-advised by someone who moved here before Brexit. Now, as time goes by, this gets less and less, but you do need to be careful because they don't really check on you at all. Sometimes you can use the e-gate even, so you don't speak to anyone.
Wow.
So be very careful about that. And of course, we're talking about visas, so there's many different types of visas.
Yes.
There are some sort of sectorial visas which are tailored to specific either jobs or type of individual. For instance, you have the global talent, which is for people with very high qualifications. You have the visa for musicians or artists. But these are a bit of niche, and in either way, there will be the link in the description of a tool from gov.uk, which lets you find the kind of visa for you, which is checked-uk-visa. So it's very easy.
Perfect. Yes.
But regardless, we can talk about the main types of visa. So the three main types that most people will end up doing are the skilled worker, which is the one for people that want to find employment, the student, which is the one for students, and the family visa, which is the one for people with family here. They want to join their fellow relatives. So for the skilled worker, the procedure is hard in the sense that you do need quite a bit of requirements. So first of all, passport is mandatory. I don't have to tell you, the ID card is not usable unless you were here since before Brexit.
Yes, always better to remind people that passport is the
me,
document needed.
I think in Italy, about half of the population doesn't have a passport or something like that.
Indeed.
Because you really can use the ID card, which is good. It's us, the Brexit is the problem here.
Indeed.
So you need an English test of a certain type. There's a specific one that you have to take in specific locations. You need to have a job offer from a company which can sponsor. So being a sponsor is not something anyone can do. You need to register with the Home Office and follow a certain procedure. So the ability to sponsor workers is something that a few companies have. Then your job needs to be in a list of jobs which are approved for a visa. So if you want to be a kitchen porter, for instance, you cannot get sponsored because it's not in the list. If you want to be a chef, then that is in the list. And the list can be quite wild in that you do see what are, I don't think it's a good word, but sometimes they're called unskilled jobs.
Yes.
There's few unskilled jobs and many skilled ones in the list, but this is not fully coherent, in my opinion. Some are missing that should be there and vice versa. So it's always best to check the list, which is explicit and you can read it. But either way, when you apply for the visa, you need to have the certificate of sponsorship, which this company says, I'm happy to hire this guy for these many years. And the salary is above the threshold. There's a minimum salary you can be paid, and it's also going up really soon. So I think, I don't want to say wrong numbers, but I think it's going up to 25,000 really soon, and then it will bump up even more to 34,000. But of course, the government is about to change, so that could change as well.
Are we talking about euro or pounds?
Pounds, yeah.
Pounds.
So yeah, just conversions, well, add 10%-ish.
Okay, perfect.
But if you read job adverts, there will be pounds. So
okay.
But this is the bureaucratic side. So you would apply for a job, they make you an interview, then they agree to sponsor you, they send you the certificate, and you apply. Now, during the procedure, you may have problems or technical queries, but as I say, if the company is sponsoring you and pays money to get you, there will probably have some legal advice available for you. So really, if someone gets a sponsorship and then they tell him apply on your own, we're not going to help you. That's a pretty big red flag, in my opinion. So in my opinion, nobody should ever ask for help for a skilled work visa because they should get it from the sponsor. So I find it really odd when I see a few people asking for help because I'm like, what's your company doing here? They're putting money into this, you know. So anyway, that's for skilled worker. And it sounds doable, right? As a pretty normal system, like
yeah, this
other
is what I
countries.
wanted to say. I mean, if I think about moving to the Netherlands, for instance, from non-European countries, basically is the same.
Precisely. If you look at the numbers of how many Europeans moved here since Brexit, there's really, really trivial numbers. We're talking less than 10,000 visas given to Italian people from 2021.
Oh, wow.
Which is a drop in the ocean. So why is that? Well, the reason is that the costs involved with the visa are huge. So you have to pay for your access to healthcare. So there's a surcharge, which is charged yearly and is paid all at the start. Then the employer needs to pay money to be a sponsor. And then you need to pay fees to apply for the visa. So all in all, for an employer, hiring someone from abroad is about £5,000 less advantageous than hiring someone, say, local, which means that the salaries for sponsored applications are lower. For instance, I have seen in Manchester places for pizza shops in which is a very required job, you know, especially for Italian people who are experts at pizza, that are paid much less if they offer sponsorship than if they don't. So you see about even £15 an hour for a pizza chef with right to work, but the sponsored application had about 11 or 11.5. Why? Because the other costs go into hiring someone with a sponsor. So this has the effect that the salaries are lower than what European people normally get.
Yeah. So it's a big disadvantage for people moving.
Precisely. So it's not very convenient for them to come to the UK at all.
Yeah.
So you see that in the numbers that they just don't. And on the opposite, however, non-EU immigration has shot up. We have had the highest net immigration ever this year. Wow. Because these salaries have risen for the need to attract Europeans. And so they're very incredibly attractive for workers which are countries which A, don't have access to the EU. So bureaucratically, EU and UK are the same for them. And have lower salaries in general. So these are more attractive. So for European people right now, with few exceptions, which are sectorial, the UK isn't really an attractive place. So to anyone considering moving here, I would ask, are you sure? Unless you work in, you know, London is still absolutely great for finance companies and whatnot, but pretty much everything else you should ponder what other options do I have available. And even if you don't want to learn German, again, in the Netherlands, speaking English is fair enough. Ireland,
yes, indeed. Yeah.
That's a few options.
Also, because of course, then people have to, and we are going to talk about it in a few minutes. People also have to consider the cost of living. So it's not only about, okay, I'm getting more or less, but then this less because of the sponsor is going to be still enough for me to have a decent or a better life, because a lot of people emigrate to have a better life, better condition in the country where I'm moving. So it's a fair question to ask to people who want to move. And this is very important. And this is the reason of these videos, to make people aware that what they see at the beginning is not everything. There is a lot more to learn about the country.
There's also the pretty big issue that your visa is linked to your job. So if you change job, you need to reapply, which is a bit costly, but also can have consequences. If you don't like your job, your employer has a lot more power over you because they stay in the country. So this period lasts 5 years. After 5 years, you're settled, so you get indefinite leave to remain, in which case you can stay and work here forever, with few caveats. If you commit crimes or if you leave for a long time, but let's not go there.
Yes.
So there's this 5 years period, which is not too long, but not too short either.
Yeah. It's, I mean, if you are still at risk, 5 years can be a very, very long period.
In a way. And then just touch on the other points, student visas are self-explanatory. You get a student offer. But bear in mind, again, that now EU people are not home students anymore. So while home students pay about £9,000 a year for university, fees for non-EU people can shoot up to 35,000 pounds a year. Like in my university, I think it's 32,000 for most courses. So of course that's incredibly pricey. We're talking about for a three-year degree, it's 100,000 pounds, which is more than 100,000 euros. And
Wow.
that's pretty straightforward in that if you study here, you can stay for a certain length of time of your studies, and then you can apply for another visa to stay for 2 more years or leave, and so on.
Yeah,
Finally,
that's again, it's
is
pretty the same everywhere, I believe. So there is the visa for the timing of your courses, master, or whatever study you're doing, and then there is like a period of transition, let's say, while you can have visa to look for a job. At least it was like that in the Netherlands. Do they
yeah,
have a
it's in the
transition
UK. The
period?
graduate visa lasts 2 years.
Okay.
And there's a bit of an issue where employers don't really see it as attractive because after 2 years you have to leave, and so they have to apply for skilled worker. So it's
Yeah.
actually been a bit of a mess as far as I know. But yeah, there's a transition time for a student visa. I think a few months after you finish, and then there's a graduate specifically for people to try it later, which doesn't really work as far as I know.
Okay.
And to touch on the third one, family visa, they are fairly restricted. So for unless you want to bring your children here, in which case it's relatively straightforward. Or for your parents, you need to show that they're dependent on you, so they need to be
Okay.
need a carer or financially unable to sustain themselves. For partners, there are quite a few requirements unless you're married, but a common saying when you talk about immigration is if your advice is get married, that's not good advice. You should not get married just for the other person to get a visa.
No.
That's really bad and can go really, really wrong.
Yes.
And so even family visas, again, it's really hard to go in every case, but normally they're not open to strange parental relationship like brothers or sisters or uncle or cousin, unless there are tutorship responsibilities. So, if your
So
brother is
there
actually
are
your
some
carer
strict
and you're
criteria.
10
Some
years old,
strict.
yeah, but that's really an exception. Either way, in that case, you would absolutely need immigration advice. Applying for a family visa blindly is costly and ultimately useless. So I also want to mention that for European citizens, there is another option, which is the EU settlement scheme joining families member, which is free. And has similar requirements, a bit more strict, but the main difference is that this only takes into account things that began before Brexit. So if I had a partner and we've been together for since before Brexit, say 2017, then I could apply to bring her here as my partner if we live together, if we have evidence that our relationship is stable. But if I get a partner from 2021, even if we get married, I cannot use the EU settlement scheme because the EU settlement scheme freezes the situation at the time before Brexit and only considers things that happened back then.
Okay,
So,
well, this is
a picture. But I'm mentioning this because, well, a bit harder, it's free. So and it has way less requirements and it's way less formal. So absolutely do consider whether you have a relative, direct relative, so that you probably know if you do in the UK. It's before Brexit. And the typical example again is either children or durable partner. Maybe they got married in the time and so on. These are the 3 main options, and then there's tons of other small visas for specific situations.
Of course, for specific situation, but again, they can be found in the official website, and everybody can have a look at what is the situation and still ask questions over there. I guess there is the possibility to contact them and to understand better. And it's very important what you say at the beginning as a disclaimer. Not only is not well seen to find information online just randomly in a Facebook group or something like that, is also not safe, because as we know, applying for visa costs money, and if you are not doing it properly, then you are basically wasting time, but also money.
Not just that, if you lie on a visa application, that's basically a red flag that you're not going to get it. Stop, right? And some people advise you to lie. Some people, for instance, advise to make a few bank transfers so you can pretend there's financial dependence. That's really wrong. So the point is, there's a reason that it's illegal to give immigration advice, and the reason is that consequences can be dire.
Of course.
But moreover, I guess what I want to say is, if like if you go fishing randomly, it's fine to get signposted. Signposted means I tell you, hey, there is a thing called family visa. Have a look. Like what I've said now is not immigration advice because I'm not
Yeah,
speaking to you specifically. I'm giving a
of
general
course.
thing.
Yeah.
Whenever you consider someone's individual circumstances, again, I'm a legal advisor for the EU settlement scheme. When you consider the individual, there are tons of exceptions which can be positive or negative that may
Yeah.
or may not apply. And that's why you need some kind of specialist, like the doctor, you know. It's one
Yeah.
thing to say being overweight can be bad for your heart. It's another to consider a person in front of you and you have to judge how fit they are. That's completely different. So
It's a
never
different
ask
story,
for
yes.
immigration advice for yourself. You can ask for signposting. Where can I find the guidance for that? That's fine. But
Yes.
ultimately, getting specialist help, which means a solicitor or legal advice from your company. For the EU settlement scheme, there's plenty of charities that give free one, but not for other things. But that's just a matter of time, I think.
Okay.
Other nationalities are very organized in that regard. European people are not because there's just not been enough time
Okay.
for these
Okay.
things to form. But yeah.
Perfect. That's no, that's very clear, and it's important to underline it, and also the reason why it is
Yeah,
how
no,
it is.
absolutely.
Very quick on the cost of living, because we have said something
Sure.
about it, and cost of living in UK, I mean, since ever has always been considered a little bit high. Can you give us some example? I don't know, for example, how much could cost a one-bedroom apartments to rent?
So,
You are
yeah,
in Manchester, maybe in your
Manchester, yeah.
area.
So the Northwest is the one of the cheapest regions in the country, really. So where Manchester is.
Okay.
But Manchester has shot up considerably in recent times. So
Mhm.
for a one bedroom for a not particularly good one bedroom in the city center, I was paying 650 in 2020, and now it's
Okay.
being advertised for 900. So just
Okay, so
a month.
the raise
So
is there.
the
I mean,
hike
it's
has been
real.
quite crazy. You can get a two bed in a nice area for about 1,500, so 1,500,
Okay.
which probably is what you do when you have a house share. In terms
Mm-hmm.
of cost of living, it again is shot up like everywhere else. Energy is quite expensive, especially
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have gas. Electric heating can cost you like 300 a month in winter because it can be quite cold. The houses are not well insulated,
Mm.
so it's really the cost of energy is really high because of our unique UK framework where you
Yeah.
pay for every energy source as you pay for the most pricey one. So yeah, it's a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
Food is very cheap. There's a lot of competition between supermarkets. The chance
Mm-hmm.
of driving price is really low. So compared to Italy, you can find the
Mm-hmm.
prices are like, I don't want to say
Yeah.
half, but pretty much half of what you pay
Yeah.
for equal quality. Equal quality, I mean, of course, some things may be worse here, but I'm like the
Yeah,
best
okay, but
supermarket in
generally speaking,
Italy
I
is
mean, we are
twice
talking
the price.
about good
Yeah,
food.
that's the best
Yeah.
supermarket
No,
in
but
the
I
UK.
remember that I noticed that because also coming from the Netherlands, which is super expensive,
Yeah,
also in the
Netherlands are very
supermarket,
expensive. Yeah,
and going to UK, I was expecting to have more or less the same price or even higher, but actually not. So in that sense,
no, no, no.
Netherlands is more expensive, and probably is
Yeah.
more expensive also compared on the house market. Well, we're not talking about London, of course, that is a different
Yeah,
story,
I mean, London,
but
there's a housing crisis, which ends up
yes.
driving prices higher and higher and higher. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I bought a house as soon as I could because renting is just mad.
Yeah, it doesn't make
But
any
it's
sense
still
at a certain
affordable
point.
if you have to be fair, if you're coming here, you have a salary threshold. So, um,
Yeah.
so you can probably afford it right now because that salary is decent enough. But there's a problem here where if you're new, you don't have access to benefits. So the
Mm-hmm.
social security net is basically completely broken for you for at least 5 years. So
Hmm.
if you fall on hard times and you need any kind of benefits, which can be job seeker allowance or universal credit, first of all, benefits in the UK are incredibly low compared to everywhere else. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a bit, again, expect if you fall on hard times, the UK is really not the best country
No, no, not
for
right
that.
now, at least.
It's
Yeah,
similar to the
indeed.
US in that regard.
5 years. So 5 years is the time frame for a lot of things. It's also the minimum, I believe, that you need to apply for citizenship.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's 6 because it's 1 year after you got the 5 year thingy.
Okay, so it's 6 years. Five
But
plus
you need
one.
5. They do consider the previous 5 years when you apply, but you need to have had, in most cases, unless you're married to a British person or you're a baby, you need to have had 5+1, so 1 year since you've had the indefinite leave to remain. So
Okay.
overall, it will be 6 years. A person moving here tomorrow would probably be able to apply for citizenship, for naturalization, which is the process of getting British citizenship in 6 years from that time.
Okay, okay. Is the process difficult, expensive? How does it work?
So it's expensive. It costs about, so there's a fee, which is now it's 1,580. Then there's an English test, and there's a test about British life, which is called Life in the UK.
Okay.
And that's about it, unless you need to produce specific documents, which can cost money depending on what country they're from and what kind of requirements there are. One thing I want to say is that it's completely optional in that indefinite leave to remain is a good status that protects you and
Of
gives you
course.
basically every right, which except consular assistance abroad and the right to vote in UK elections. So there's very few things you cannot do without a British passport. Many people choose to. I naturalize, for instance, because when you're planning to spend decades here, then it's worth doing it. Being able to vote, you know, and
that's one of the thing I always think about, because I would like to have the Dutch citizenship. But the problem, and that is not a problem in UK, is that if I do apply for citizenship here or naturalization, I had to give up on my Italian passport. But this is not the case in UK.
In the Netherlands, because Italy says you can have as many as you like, I don't care, and the UK that says the same. So
in this case, it's the Netherlands that require one.
The Netherlands just say, yeah, you need to, yeah.
If you are
absolutely. So
European,
here it's not a choice. I'm not sure I know a single Italian person that has renounced their Italian citizenship, because why would they?
Right.
And the process is really easy in terms of what you have to do. So you apply, you pay the fee, you go to an appointment to give them your fingerprints. And then if they accept it, which can take 3-6 months, you get a letter and you have to go to a ceremony where you make a note to the king, and you get your certificate, and then you can apply with your passport, which is online by post. As usual with this, just like visas and everything else, either you get the help of a professional which can structure your application, or any kind of exception that deviates from all the requirements that needs addressing. You're sort of left alone dealing with it, and if they refuse your application, you don't get your money back. And if you breach your absence limit, you can be absent up to 450 days in the previous 5 years. If you've done 460, they can apply discretion. They can disregard the requirement if you ask for it. How do you ask for it? Well, it's in the cover letter, but how do you ask for it in the right way? That is an issue. So again, you can get the help of anyone you like. It's still considered immigration. So if you receive advice by someone, they should be regulated, or it's illegal, and it could be reported and fined and whatnot. But the main problem for you wouldn't be the illegality of the advice, would be the wrongness of the advice. There is always an inherent risk. I have to say, naturalization is quite well examined. So on one hand, it seems quite straightforward, and lots of resources which are generic, but with a bit of insight, you can read into them. On the other hand, we still don't quite know what. I mean, in terms of European people, it hasn't been 5 years since Brexit. So most people who apply for citizenship now rely on settled status, which is the indefinite leave to remain that you get with the European EU settlement scheme. People who come here now and want to apply for citizenship in 5 years will need to use their rights earned through the visa. And we still haven't seen what that looks like. Not that I anticipate any issue, but there are some technicalities that have been technicalities for EU settlement scheme as well, which have been painfully resolved. So we don't know what else could arise. It's law is generally complex.
Yes,
but in terms
is.
of, unlike Italy, where you apply and there's a, what do they make now, 3 years limit, 3 years response time, in which case, and they always almost reply at the last possible moment. Here it's much easier in a way, and it's very, very hard to get stuck in the process.
Get stuck in the
You could
process.
generally
Okay.
get a refusal though if any of the requirements is not properly fulfilled.
Of course. Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
What's the level of knowledge of the language that is required?
It's certainly either B1 or B2, probably B1, but
Yeah,
something
probably
worth checking.
V1. Yeah, sounds more
There's a
reasonable.
specific test for that too, so not any test works. And then you have to do this test, which is 24 questions about British life. So they may ask you about history or what's the national flower of Wales. I got this question.
Okay.
What, you know, or who was this guy of like a William Wordsworth, which is a poet.
Yes.
All this kind of questions. There's
Yeah,
a
it's
book that you have
about
to
culture
study.
in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah, they want to scrap it because they don't
Yeah.
think it's fair. But for now, there is this requirement.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
again we can talk the same language because in here also they ask some questions about culture. So Dutch culture in general, it can be about the royal family, it can be about something else.
Yeah, honestly, fun to do it. It costs £50 per trial, so if you fail, you have to pay them again. You can do as many
Yeah,
times as you like.
so
But
better to study
yeah,
then.
correct. Yeah.
Okay. Cesare, to close with this interview, and thanks a lot for all the info that you are sharing with us. What about your feelings? So you decide to buy an house, you decide to get the citizenship there. So I really believe you are very happy living living there. What's your advice for example, integrate in the UK culture or community if people are just moving despite all the bureaucracy? What you want to say to people that are moving to UK?
Well, I moved to Manchester, which is a student city, fully multicultural, radically leftist. So that's always been a Labour stronghold since forever, probably. So that's not the UK. That's a very specific location in the UK. So London and Manchester are fully multicultural, and you don't even feel like a foreigner because everyone else is too. So if you move elsewhere in the UK to more local rural towns, then expect a picture which is closer to what used to be the national identity of the United Kingdom, which is the old-fashioned British customs, and they can be quite less inclusive in that regard. So I heard many stories of people getting discriminated in certain areas, not in Manchester, I have to say, or London, but it has happened that they felt not welcome because they were not British, and that's completely common to every nationality. So it's not European or not, doesn't really matter.
Yes. Okay.
So it can happen. So my advice is really hard because, again, working in a university and being in a fully multicultural town, nobody has ever even attempted to discriminate me because I'm not British. Like this never happened to me. So I don't know. I've not experienced it. So my advice would be the same as anyone else's advice, which is, stand up for your rights. Don't accept bullying. Don't accept being discriminated, and just you have every right to be there if you're there legally. So there is no reason to feel. There's one thing that Italians say that I absolutely hate. They say you move to their country, so they decide this. I don't know if you ever heard in Italian, it's more common. So they say it's their home, their customs. I completely disagree with that. If I work here and I pay taxes, I have as much as a right to say what I believe should be done here as you do. So you shouldn't be thankful or be like, oh, well, I'm here as a guest, so I have to. But no, you're not there as a guest. So
of course
don't be a
not.
guest. Own
You
your
don't.
home.
You work, you pay taxes, so you have all the rights.
If you don't work, you're there legally. So not everyone works, I guess, but still, you're there legally and you're part of the community, and you have exactly as many rights to be heard as everyone else. There's no such thing as a privilege for them being born there instead of you. So
that's a very good point, Cesare, actually, because mainly Italian probably say something like that, but it's very common, I guess, to have these thoughts in our mind as expat, thinking that, okay, yes, we belong, but not that much. Maybe we don't know everything so well as locals know, so maybe we should shut up or step back. And
No,
instead,
that's actually fair enough. If you don't know something, you should accept that you know less than the people there. I'm just like, if you know something and have some opinion on it,
yes,
there's the excuse that you just that's unfair, but that's how they do it. Well, then better start working on changing it, because that's how most rights are earned everywhere.
indeed,
So
yes.
not that the UK is particularly unfair, but you hear this a lot about several things, and sometimes
Yeah,
it's
I
just
guess
not
that
true.
is just a common point that can be addressed from expat for
Yeah.
expat in everywhere, not specifically in UK, but it's the general thing.
Yeah, no,
To
absolutely. It's not
don't step back if you have the right to step up
fair enough.
and say something because you have the knowledge. Of course, that is always the base. If you don't know something, better don't. First learn and then
Yeah.
talk. But if you know something, then you have the rights to say it. So
Yeah, I
definitely.
mean, I'm just like, your opinion is worth exactly as much as the one of the people around you.
Yes,
So
yes,
not more, no less.
yes.
That's the
And
kind of
with
thing.
that, I guess we don't have to add anything because it's the most important sentence you could say. And it's a good tip for
Okay.
everybody. It's a reminder for everybody.
Yeah.
So good.
Okay.
Cesare, thank you very much. As I said, I'm going to leave in the description of the video also the contacts in case people want to follow you or they are in need for some advice in the proper
Yeah,
way.
they're very welcome. Please read the website. I swear the answer is probably there, but you're welcome to message me otherwise. Yeah.
Perfect. This sounds
And yeah,
great.
nice being here. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Have a good rest of the day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.